Our stories are a collection of moments tucked away deep inside our hearts and minds. Moments from the past. For some of us, what happened in the past can limit our present or cloud the future. We hear a voice from within, a voice that says, "You are damaged goods. You are disqualified, weak." What this world sees as broken, Jesus sees as beautiful. Where culture sees defeat, Jesus sees potential. What society labels as rejected, Jesus offers redemption. The Bible tells us that Jesus uses the weak to shame the strong, and the foolish to shame the wise. When we're at our weakest, that's the very place we can tap into the strength of God. It's in this new perspective that we realize our past doesn't have to define us any longer, because we are the community of those who couldn't make the cut, the gathering of those not good enough. So may your grief bring about His goodness. May your pain bring out trust in His promises. The past that brought us shame can find renewal in one name: Jesus.
Good evening and welcome to this year's Thanksgiving service. Whether you call Epicenter your church or you're joining us for the first time this evening, it is great to be able to gather together as individuals with different stories, different perspectives that life has brought. And some are experiencing a season of joy, and we also understand that there's others that may be going through a season of sorrow. We're all different people that make up something called the church. For some, there is going to be a lot to be thankful for tomorrow. For others, tomorrow will simply serve as that reminder of everything that has changed and is missing. We each carry such a unique story that the best way to almost see it is like snowflakes. I know that it sounds corny, but it's true, right? Every single one is unique. One of the ways that we could see that is no matter how similar our stories are, there are so many nuances in each story that nobody can fully share in its celebration or in its mystery. We can understand what we might be going through, but we can't fully understand what every person has experienced. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 10 puts it well when it states this: "Each heart knows its own bitterness, and no one else can fully share its joy." We're unique people that have unique experiences, and every single thing that we experience is unique. Everyone in this room has a story that is unique to them, and while we can definitely be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who weep, as Romans chapter 12, verse 15 encourages us as believers to do, one of the things that we have to understand is that our sorrow or our excitement, whichever one it is, will not be shared in the same magnitude as an individual, as a different individual. We could definitely understand it from a perspective, but we can't understand it fully. There are certain things that play a factor into our final experience that we're not going to have the exact same experience. Those moments are unique to us. So if you're finding yourself void of grief and sorrow today, it's nothing but joy. Tomorrow is going to be a great day of celebration, reflection, and thanksgiving. But if you find yourself in the trenches this year, the truth is that nothing that we have experienced in the past, that we are experiencing currently, or even if we were to experience it tomorrow, nothing will change what tomorrow commemorates in our country, and that we should also commemorate in as well. And that is being grateful, just giving thanks for where we're at. It doesn't matter what you've experienced. It will not change the fact that tomorrow is a day that is commemorating a spirit of gratitude. And even though that won't change, there is one thing that can possibly change how we go into tomorrow, and it's not going to happen by trying to change what is irreversible, right? There's things that have taken place in our lives Whether it's things that we ourselves put ourselves in that position, or whether it's the passing of someone, it's irreversible. Those things cannot be changed. But as much as it's going to sound cliche, the way that we face tomorrow with a different way to give thanks is by allowing God to fix our perspective. And it sounds cliche. I get it. We're at the church, and that's the right thing to say. I've said that many years in the past. But let me just say this. Allowing God to change our perspective doesn't mean that it will change our environment. Maybe an example to put it in is a great attitude in the midst of a house fire will not minimize the flames that are around you. It doesn't matter how great of an attitude you have. But your response in the midst of that fire will determine how you navigate your environment. If you're panicky, you're probably not going to make the greatest decisions. But it's the way that you go into the fire. And understand that as we're talking today in this short time frame about how to view tomorrow in a different way if we're experiencing a time of difficulty, this is not me saying, suck it up, buttercup, and that's not saying that we should stop seeing things for what it is, just kind of ignore it. Because even if, let's just pretend for a second that was what I was trying to encourage you to do. Even if you were to emotionally and mentally suppress the sorrow, the pain, and the mystery in your life, none of those things continue to exist even if you ignore them. They're still going to be there. Maybe a good example would be if someone took a swing at your leg with a sledgehammer, it doesn't matter how much someone would come up to you and tell you, hey, just stop thinking about the pain, right? Every nerve in your body would remind you, you are in pain. Your experiences are real. That pain that you're experiencing is real. But one thing that is also true, and this is something that you really have to consider, we all have to consider, this is a reminder for me as well. This is a reminder that I have to put myself back into every year. I don't get it right all the time. I actually don't get it right most of the time. But one thing that you have to understand is that as real as your experiences are, our experiences are, one thing that is also true is that our experiences often cloud the full extent of reality. It's not exactly what it is. If somebody took a sledgehammer to your leg and it was crushed, the pain that you would experience would be real, but more than likely you would feel like you're dying. That's how your experiences distort your reality. You're not dying. You're in pain, no doubt about that, but you're not dying. And one of the things that we understand is that our pain often misrepresents our reality. In the midst of the pain in our lives, reality is often obscured. We often experience a lack of joy, not for a lack of good things, but because those difficult circumstances often cloud all the good things that are going on around us. If you think about this, despair, discontentment, and depression comes when we focus on everything that is missing, while contentment and thanksgiving comes when we focus on everything that is not. We don't focus on the things that are missing, we're focusing on the things that are there. That's contentment. And contentment doesn't diminish the reality of the things that are missing. They're still there. But the things that are missing do not dictate our peace. And I know that as I'm using this example, some of you might be thinking, it sounds an awfully lot like you're saying that the guy with the mangled leg should cheer up because he still has two arms and one leg to hobble on. That's not the same. I'm not saying ignore the reality of your pain. But let me maybe reiterate that perspective from the broken leg. Once again, if your leg was broken, you would definitely feel like you're dying, but that's not reality. The pain in the midst of that is a reminder that we're not dead because we're still feeling pain. It also pushes us to get help or reminds us that help is on its way. And while that leg may very well alter your life, let's just think of worst case scenario. Let's pretend that your mangled leg has to get amputated. everything that your life was before will no longer be the same after that. That is a reality. But your life has not ended. That painful event, although it's going to be significant, it will not be the end of the story. Your life will continue. And we all have different stories that have not only shaped us into who we are, but we're going to continue to experience circumstances that will continue to shape us into who we will be. And sometimes it takes those difficult moments to help us realize how much we take for granted the great moments that we have. Around this time last year, totally different year. If I'm being honest, 1 year ago, I could not see past 2022. I just couldn't do it. It was difficult. It was, and if I'm being honest, there continues to be some aspects of life, of what it was, that I continue to miss today, and they're still painful to let go of because things have changed. I don't miss everything, but there are certain things that I do miss. There's things that have actually gotten better because of what was lost. And it's also brought about this reality that there's, even in that year, that I could not see past the end of the year, there was much to be thankful for in the last 365 days. But when life gets turned upside down, it's really hard to see past the pain that you've caused others and that you're experiencing yourself. That pain is real. Trying to move forward is difficult because that one moment seems to follow you no matter where you go. It almost seems to define you, no matter how far away you move from that moment. But I want to remind you of something that we started off with in the opening clip, and that is that our stories are a collection of moments. It's not a singular moment, but a collection of them. That's what makes up a story. Not one chapter, not one sentence. It is every chapter that collects into a full story. The season or the moment that is defining your today is not the same moment that will continue to define your tomorrow, or at least it doesn't have to be. Our stories, once again, are a collection of moments. Good ones, painful ones. One moment does not define your lives, but I will say this. Every moment does shape your character. And it could be good or bad. It's going to shape your character in one way or another. And the greatest way that we could see that one moment does not define our existence is actually seen in the Bible. We could see that one singular moment of failure or success does not define you. And I'll limit, for the sake of time, in the direction that I will go, because there's many examples that we could go to. But a prime example of how a moment of success doesn't define your legacy or your entire life is actually found in a man by the name of King Saul. Now, King Saul was the first man to be chosen to become the ruler, the king of all Israel. Interestingly enough, here's the thing about Saul. Saul in the Bible is mentioned to be aesthetically pleasing. He's handsome. That's the way that he's described. But he's also chosen into the highest position that there is of ruling. It'd be like saying that you were the president. There's no higher honor in position. However, he was removed from that power and position. And his legacy doesn't end well, even though he had a great moment of success. And it wasn't because he screwed up once, as we can see that in his successor, King David, who follows after him. And King David captures the entire story and the essence that one story or one moment of failure will not define your entire story. That doesn't mean that it will not be remembered, but it will not define it. That's the heart of the gospel, that you can screw up, but ultimately that's not your defining moment. It is a journey that defines you. King David's success was completely overshadowed by his failures. There's so many. But his failures did not define his story. The patriarch Abraham, who that's where we all kind of go back to, had many moments of failure. But the collection of those failures did not define his story. In spite of all his failures, at the end of Abraham's life, at the end of Abraham's story, he is not known by his failures, but he is known by his faith. That's insane, because if you look at all the failures, there's many. Once again, your failures don't define you. It is how you respond in those failures. So keep in mind that if you're struggling to be thankful for anything going into tomorrow, your story isn't over yet. And today's failures don't have to define your tomorrow. If the reason that you're struggling to experience joy today and to find reason to be thankful for tomorrow, it has to do more with something or someone that is missing, let me just say I can't even begin to fully understand your pain. I can definitely see it as we've experienced loss this last year as well. But every single scenario is different. I can't fully understand it. And I know that suppressing the pain will not heal the sorrow. So it's not about just sucking it up. It's there. But finding contentment amidst the sorrow is what helps us to be thankful. Not because we're choosing to ignore the fact that there may be things, or more importantly, that there may be people that are missing at the table this year. But in spite of the things or the people that are missing, there are those who are still present that we have to be grateful for as well. And I know that realistically we should be thankful 24/7, 365 days a year, but it's a national holiday. The pressure is on for tomorrow. If you have just been having a hard week, month, year, decade, the goal tonight is not to get you to the level of joy. If we get you there, that's awesome, but that's not the goal. The goal this evening is to get us to a point of contentment. And contentment is not the Christian's way to settle, but contentment is sustainable while joy is not. If you seek after joy, it will leave you empty because you're constantly going to be chasing that high. Contentment is just simply accepting what is for what it is. When you get to those moments where you can't fully experience joy, don't sink to sorrow, but strive for contentment. Contentment is going to bring you into a place of gratitude. Knowing that there are things missing or not the same is reality. But it brings us around the table with gratitude for the things that are not missing. There's a way that Paul puts it in Philippians chapter 4, starting in verse 11, all the way through the most used and abused Bible verse ever that we're going to go to. But this verse that we're going to end with is one of the most used and abused verses that you have to put into context. Paul is writing this under house arrest. It's not like it's the most ideal of circumstances. But he starts by saying, I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or with little. There's contentment. And then here's the most used and abused verse that cannot be taken out of context. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. He's not talking about pumping iron at the gym. He's talking about I can endure any circumstance as difficult as it is because I know that Christ can give me the strength that is required so that I could keep on going and I could find contentment. Understand that what we're talking about is not learning to miserably cope without things. That's not the case. It is simply learning to live with whatever is within your reach. It is not ignoring the realities of your circumstances, but choosing to be grateful in spite of the absence of those things. As I already mentioned, and as my wife mentioned in the intro video, this has definitely been a difficult year for her and for our family as a whole. And I've been at the center of that difficulty that has been created. But today I stand here, 2023, a year that I didn't think I could make it to. And I see a chapter that I didn't think I would mentally and emotionally be able to get to. And in hindsight, there has been so much to be thankful for, even in that messy year. Sometimes we just fail to count every blessing and see it through the cloud of despair. And once again, it's been more than a year, but it's been a very difficult year. And it's difficult to see the good things, but they're there. So in a few minutes, we're going to be entering into an open mic time where we're going to open the mic for whoever feels led to share whatever they're grateful for. And I know that I focused a lot on the negative. So I know that some might be thinking, I have nothing to say, You don't need to have had a rough year to feel like you can share. We are here to mourn with those who are mourning, but we are also here to be happy with those who are happy. And maybe you find yourself not necessarily miserable, or not necessarily in contentment and not necessarily happy. You find yourself kind of trying to merge into one or the other, and it's okay. Share where you're at. God is not afraid of your questions or your doubts. Our story of joy could actually be the encouragement that someone else needed this evening, and our story of heartache can be the strength that someone else needed to keep on pressing forward. So nonetheless, we all have a story to share, and as we share those stories, we come alongside each other, knowing that there are moments of mourning and moments of happiness. Let's pray, and then we're going to be watching a quick video and opening it up for whoever feels led to share. The pressure is on. Here we go.